So YouTube is refusing to monetize this channel. Now, I know this is a different topic for you today, folks. Most of my viewers are into truck content. So we're going to talk a little bit about the monetization program with YouTube. So for those of you folks who like my truck content, I'll be releasing more content, but you probably won't want to watch this video. But before you go, at least hit the like button to help this video get out on YouTube for those people who are struggling with monetization on YouTube. So, now let's get into the details here and tell you why YouTube is refusing to monetize this channel. And it's a very interesting story for you here because, again, for those of you folks who are looking for the monetization with YouTube, and with everything that's going on right now, with their increase of the watch hours, going from 4,000 to 8,000 watch hours beginning on February, I think it's February 1st of 2027. So they really threw a wrench into us here trying to get monetized. So I'm going to start from the very, very first of what happened here. I may look a little tired because I was up half the night trying to read into, why they decided to do what they're doing to us on this channel. So here's the scoop here. And like I say, YouTube, the monetization program, you can tell I'm a little tired. I can barely talk today, but the monetization program is paid out to, once you get so many watch hours and subscribers that most of you know, then they can put ads on your videos. The ads are running on the videos right now as we speak anyways, for the last couple of years, but we never met that threshold yet. So they're still earning an income off the videos, which is fine. That's the way it is. That's you agree to those terms and conditions with YouTube. But here's the problem here, and I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of my story before it happens to you. So here's what happens. Now, YouTube can turn around and, they have the right to monetize any channel or not monetize any channel. So they have stipulations in place. So if they feel that, you don't deserve to be in the monetization program, like the YPP program with YouTube, they can come up with any excuse or any reason not to monetize your channel. They could say to you, well, your videos were created in Mars and, there's no tax information or treaties from Mars, so we cannot pay you because you didn't create them on Earth. Just an example, right? They can literally come up with any reason to tell you that you're not going to monetize your channel. But here's what's going on here with this channel. Years and years ago, way back in 2013, 2014, I personally created a website. It was called Jim's Marketing Code. And I still have that website. It's still up and running. I refuse to sell the domain name. It's not making any money, but I refuse to sell it. I refuse to let somebody else have it after all of the years that I owned it. So that was fine. So way back then, I had signed up for the AdSense program with Google. So that was fine. So then everything was going great for about 30 days. And then I got this email, and I can still vividly remember the email. It said, your AdSense account was canceled or disabled or closed from invalid traffic. And I'm thinking to myself, invalid traffic? What do they exactly mean by invalid traffic? So I reached out to Google, and they tried to tell me that it was invalid traffic. They didn't really get into too much specifics about invalid traffic because I was confused what they were talking about personally. I had no idea what invalid traffic was. So they turned around and said, "Nope, you're out. You're out off the program for life. It doesn't matter. You get one strike with Google AdSense, boop, you're out, done." history. And I didn't know why. They just said it was invalid traffic. Maybe it was bot traffic. I don't even know how that happened personally. As far as I know, somebody else on the internet probably might have seen my website years and years ago. They might have sent the invalid traffic or the bot traffic, whatever they were called, whatever they're talking about there. I didn't do it. Maybe somebody else did it, because I know way back in the day there was a lot of people, and the reason why I know this is there was a lot of people, trying to sell people traffic programs or whatever. I think you can probably still get them maybe. And they would turn around and uh, pick out a website and just say, okay, we're just going to send that traffic to that website, invalid traffic, without the owner even knowing. And it would look like, whoever bought this traffic or whatever, they would get, it would make it look like they're getting traffic. But I caught on to that game about 6 years ago, because when I created the website called Truck Report Geeks, I had programs in place that you cannot send invalid traffic. You cannot send bot traffic to my website. I have a program in place. It's called WordFence. And I have the filters set up so strict that if you send any bot traffic or any invalid traffic to that website, it's going to completely block out the IP address. Now, if they try to send another one, and after 2 or 3, invalid clicks within a certain time period, and I got the settings set pretty strict. So if you send more than 3 clicks to that website in probably 5 seconds, it's going to block your IP address again. So I know from doing, Truck Report Geeks website, I had to set up a program to make sure that I didn't get no invalid traffic or bot traffic. So when we created the YouTube channel here, my wife and I looked at each other and said, we're not monetized. When the time comes to become monetized, maybe we should do it a real professional way. Maybe we'll create a brand name, which we did. Maybe we'll create a customized business name, which we did. We registered it. She registered the name, and we said, okay, we're going to do that correctly. So when the time comes when we have to monetize the channel, we want to be able to get the more benefit of a business name, because when you have a business and you have to pay taxes, you pay less tax with a business name than you would with just personal income tax. So that's what we did. So we registered the business name and we applied for the YPP program long time back. It was like a year and a half ago through YouTube. It was accepted through the business name. So it's been in place since then. But again, we didn't meet the threshold of the 1,000 subscribers. As you can see by the subscribers, we're not even there. So now my wife turned around and she has some health problems. And she looked at me a couple weeks ago. She said, well, we are kind of getting close to being monetized. And with my health problems, maybe we should change this to your name, right? Because if something happens to me down the road, she's very, very sick. It would be a really hard transition for me if something happens to her. And, it would be just better for me to put it in my name. And if it's something, God forbid, it's something that was to happen to her, we wouldn't have to get a hold of YouTube, change the name to a business, from the business name to my name, and go through the whole process of doing the paperwork and waiting to see what happened. So lo and behold, I decided to change the YouTube monetization program with YouTube to my name. So I had to go through the process of signing up for the YPP program under my name. So I turned around and did that. But a week later, Google AdSense, or I should say Google, sent me an email, and I used a whole different email from the one I had years and years ago, because that email was pretty well, I don't use it anyways. So I used a different email, and they sent me an email, and they just somehow they must have just lined up my name or my address or whatever, and they said, "Boop, no, you don't qualify. You had a bad account with us. It's been closed. It's been canceled. So we're you're not going to be allowed to be signed up to the YPP program." So I said, "Okay, well, what's going on here now?" So when they sent me the email, said it was invalid traffic from what I was telling you earlier, from that years and years ago of that invalid traffic, which I had no idea how this invalid traffic was going to that website in the first place until I learned years later what people could do to a website. Like you could create a website right now, and if somebody finds out what the website name is, and if they're selling traffic, I guess, especially through some of those online services, they can bombard your website with fake traffic and bot traffic like no tomorrow. So that's why most people, like me, with Truck Report Geeks, I have programs in place to not have bot traffic or invalid traffic hit that website. But Google does not care, right? So I get on the chat with YPP, with the YouTube. I said, "Hey, listen, this is something that's, had to be done for us to change over to my name. But now um, I was denied. My application was rejected, which is fine. It's no big deal." Then I said, "Well, so I got my wife to get on with YouTube and tell them that, we have a valid business name and it's still active, it's still valid through Google AdSense. And we want to change our YouTube, uh, program for the monetization back to the business name." And they pretty well said, "No, it's not going to happen. You can appeal it." But so she talked to somebody through support, and she chatted probably for about an hour, and we could just tell by reading the text that it was almost like she was reading just from a template. So then she did kind of like feel a little bit of sorry for her. So then she supposedly, one of her supervisors from YouTube support jumped into the conversation with her, and he said, "Okay," or she said, don't know, was a woman or a man because it was just CJ. CJ could be, I don't know, maybe it's a bot too, right? So anyway, CJ supposedly needed a few minutes to read over the text from the conversation. So CJ come back about 10, 15 minutes later and said, "Well, I read over all of the transcript from the conversation that, you've been having with the other associate. And, our decision is to not proceed. You can appeal it again if you like." So we fill out the form. My wife filled out the form and appealed it. And I really don't believe it's going to go any farther than what the form's going to be. I think it's just going to go into space somewhere. So then she jumped on Twitter, or X as they call it now. And she turned around and said a big shout out to at Team YouTube, and told them what was happening. And Team YouTube, they were pretty quick. They replied within a couple hours and said, "Hey, thanks for flagging us. But there is a process that you got to go through, and you got to go do it this way." So the link they showed her, when she clicked on the link, there was that many different links in that link that you click on and read. It's not very understanding on how you could probably proceed. And again, it gets back to that submitting in that form and an appeal form and wait and see. So getting back to the whole deal here, if I was denied, which is fine, if something happened years ago that was no fault of mine, I was just one of those unfortunate people that set up a website, and I was unfortunate that somebody seen it and decided to bombard my website years ago with fake traffic or invalid traffic, whatever they're talking about. I was the lucky, or I should say the unlucky recipient on their on their dime for receiving that traffic. So then I got my AdSense program turned off, and it's turned off for life. So now it's getting back to this situation here. It's not right what YouTube is doing here because we already had my wife had a valid business name, and it's still valid. It's still active right now with Google AdSense. Now we're trying to change it over, and they're more or less saying you got to appeal it. We shouldn't have to appeal it. Here's because it's already valid. How can you appeal, or why should you go through the process of appealing that something has not been canceled or closed or shut off? It's active. It's in good standing. Why do you got to appeal something that's in good standing? So they're more or less saying in a nice way here that since you live with your husband in the same house, since he's no good for the AdSense program, well, we're going to say you're no good as well, right? That's more or less what they're saying. If they're not reactivating that YouTube program for the AdSense, they're more or less saying that in a nice way. He's no good, so you're no good, more or less, because you live in the same household, right? We don't care, more or less. You can have a business name or whatever. We're not reinstating your YouTube monetization program unless you go through the appeal. She did the appeal, but the problem is I don't think most of those appeals will be, most of them probably don't come out good for the person that appeals it anyways. I really don't think. Now, and this is only one scenario of the YouTube program and earning money. The monetization program, it's not the world, right? It's, you can earn some money through YouTube by, people creating YouTube videos. If you're not monetized, maybe companies will see your videos. Maybe they'll like what you're doing. Maybe they'll turn around and want to do a sponsorship deal where you will sponsor their product or talk about their product in your video halfway through the video. Maybe within, the first 5 minutes, you do a 30-second segment or something. So you can make some pretty decent money that way anyways, if you're lucky enough to get a sponsor or something. But the problem here is that I don't have an issue with YouTube or Google saying, you're no good, right? You had some, a problem there. You're no longer accepted. That's not my issue here. I accept what happens. There's nothing I could do about it. But now, like I was saying earlier, I have a website up and running called, what I was saying earlier, Truck Report Geeks. I have programs in place. You cannot send me valid or bot traffic because you'll be blocked anyways. But the issue is, how can they refuse an account that's valid, in good standing, and active through Google AdSense, and more or less say, no, we're not tying that account to this, because it's a business account. Because if you read the terms and conditions, every person can have a personal account and they can have a business account through YouTube or the Google AdSense program. You just got to make sure when you create a business account that, the email doesn't correspond with your personal account, because it'll put up a flag if you use the same email for your business account and your personal account. So what it gives the right for YouTube to say, no, we're not going to reactivate your business account because you, Mrs., live in the same household as him. And that's the point of this video. So those of you folks who are trying to get monetized on YouTube, not only do you now have to come up with 8,000 watch hours between now and February 1st to get monetized, you also have Google and YouTube really playing against you here to not monetize you in the first place. It's almost like they don't want to have too many creators now making money. They just want to turn it into a TV app and focus on the big studios to pay them the money to create the content. And it's a shame because eventually small creators like me are going to just disappear. And because I know 99% of you that are small creators, you're not going to get 8,000 watch hours unless you are creating something that's completely something else that you're doing that nobody else is doing. Because YouTube also now, if you look at any videos, especially my videos and other channels, they only have about a 48-hour life expectancy. You'll get a whole bunch of views and a whole bunch of comments for the first 40 hours, 48 hours on YouTube, and then they just die right off. I get a kick out of these YouTube gurus. Oh, but you're not getting comments or you're not getting the people to hit the like button. That's why they drop off. The videos drop off after 48 hours. Well, that's a bunch of BS because I do get comments and I get the likes on my videos, and those videos still drop off. So my point here is YouTube is a hard game now. So most of you will not make money on YouTube for that reason because your life expectancy on those videos is about 48 hours of getting a lot of views and a lot of clicks. After 48 hours, they just trickle in. So until you develop about 1,000 videos on YouTube, that's the only way you're probably going to get to the 8,000 hour mark if you're not already there now. So, anyways, that's my deal on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Even though I'm not going to make no money, but hit the like and hit the subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye for now.